We're good to go?
I think we are now.
Okay. Sorry everyone to keep you waiting. I know some of you are on the other side of the world and it is very, very, very late there. But we just had a few issues here with getting Facebook to authorize my login on a different device. I hadn't updated my Facebook app on my phone to generate a code, and so I updated the app, and all of a sudden the code generator was no longer there. So it was a little bit of back and forth, but we are all set up and ready to go now. I have 20 images. So this critique is going to cover things like composition, lighting, camera angles, posing, styling, all of those things. So I'm going to focus on each image individually, and I've not looked at all of the images, so Garrett's uploaded them all here for me in Photoshop, and the easiest way for me to get through these images and explain what it is that I'm talking about is to use some of the tools in Photoshop so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, I'm not sure how many people we've got joining us yet.
Sean says, good morning from Ireland.
Good morning, good morning. Nice and cold over there?
We're up to 21.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's get this started. This critique is going to stay in the group, so you'll be able to come back and watch it at any time. And yeah, we're ready to go, Garrett?
Yeah, just going to bring up our monitor again.
So we're using a program here. We've got leads going everywhere to make sure that this is done properly for you, so you can see everything that I'm talking about. So you'll be able to see my screen here in front of me, my laptop. And Garrett's just on the other side of
getting it all to work.
Getting the program to work.
Just
it's gone on holidays, has it?
Yes.
Anyway, it's Friday morning here, 8:15 a.m. So we are a little bit late.
That's alright. Can you just check the Wi-Fi on the laptop?
Okay, we're on studio, so we need to be on the top one.
Yeah.
It's not, there it is.
Just jumped over by itself there.
Alright, it's good to go.
Awesome.
If you have an image that you're waiting for to be critiqued, they're in no particular order. Taking advice on from someone else isn't always easy. So I'm going to focus on some really constructive different elements where you could possibly improve your photographs. Feedback is always something, you know, we crave as artists, and we hope to. Garrett's just going to have a little bit of a play here, so I'll keep talking, something that I know how to do well, maybe not too well, without a lot of coffee. So yeah, when you are submitting photographs for critique, you know, sometimes you hear things that you don't necessarily want to hear, or you feel that that's, you know, not exactly right, but it's always good to take everything on board and look at your images through somebody else's eyes, basically. And yeah, but I'm off to WPBI for a few days of judging, and I've been judging photography competitions now for I think about 8 years in total.
Yeah.
8 years. First here in Australia with the Australian Institute of Professional Photography, and then over at WPBI I've had the opportunity to judge in Sweden, and gosh, Portugal. I've been to lots of different places and been a part of their judging programs in the UK and at SWPP, and it looks as though we might be ready to rock and roll.
Got things working.
Yay. See, technology, it's a wonderful thing.
Just going to let you actually see.
That's all right.
The
And
comments
Garrett's
as
been
well.
trying to. Here we go. Now I can see some comments. Fantastic. I actually don't know who is making the comments because of the program that we're using. It's a privacy setting. So yeah, I can see what you're actually saying, but I don't know who's saying it, so it's a little bit anonymous, but that's all right. Let's get things started. So our first image here, oh gosh, the background, the blanket and the way that this has been done is really lovely. And you know what else I'm enjoying is the composition and the placement of the baby here. So if we turn on our rule of thirds, you can see the baby is sort of falling through these intersecting lines and flowing beautifully into that negative space in behind the baby. So I think the placement of the baby is absolutely perfect. The light falling across the baby. If you have a look at this image, let's turn our crop tool off. Let's zoom out. Go back down here to our little brush. Let's zoom out. So if you have a look now, the brightest part of the image is the baby's knee and this part of the leg here. So when you look at an image, you want the viewer's attention to be drawn to the face. That's the main focal point of all photographs when you're taking portraits. But down here, this leg is the brightest part of the image, and that's the direction of that light and the intensity falling in that area. So you want to make sure that when you are posing the baby and positioning the light, that little head is coming up towards that light, so the light is hitting the face first. That's going to draw your eye and your attention into this particular area here. So this might just be that a little bit more support needs to be positioned down in here to bring that face up just a little bit higher, to turn the face up towards the ceiling, and that's going to help you achieve that. This particular pose is not an easy one. It is a more advanced pose, so it can be quite sort of complicated to get it right, and as every baby's completely different, not all of them are going to go into this pose as easily as some. So they're all they're all different. You just got to work, obviously, with what they're comfortable with and not force them. But yeah, just a little bit more support there, and you'll be fine in changing the direction of that light, because the skin tones look lovely. It's just that one little part of the image there is quite bright, and we're losing a few little toes down here underneath that hand. So yeah, good job though. Right, I'm going to close these and not save them because we don't need them anymore. All right. So this baby's face is really lovely and relaxed. You can see that they're beautiful, beautifully sort of set up in terms of comfort, and I can see that there's like a proper bowl in the background here as well. But what I'm looking at is this really bright highlight here on the face. So that's the brightest part of the image. Just positioning some support down here underneath the head will help turn that baby's face up towards that light source, because you can tell that it's coming in from this direction. That's going to help bring that baby's face up, so that a little bit more light spreads across the face to help draw your eye in there a little bit more. So what happens when you don't have enough light coming in here, when you've got all of these different sort of in terms of shape of the face where the light's hitting it, if there's not enough light, it can tend to look quite flat. So you want to bring that light in, and then you're going to create shadow around the features in terms of the nose and the cheek, and you're going to add some contrast there. So lifting that face up, adding a little bit of light, you're going to bring in some shadow, and that's going to help you, create more depth and dimension to this particular part of the face. But I love the comfort. Black and white conversion is great, and in terms of the crop, what parent's not going to love a beautiful close-up of their baby's face, because that's what it's all about. So good job. All right. Make this a little bigger so you can see it. Goodness, this pose is beautiful. I'm really enjoying the color palette as well. It's really soft, and it really does make the baby stand out. The one thing that I would recommend here is purely the direction of that light. The intensity of it looks great, but you can see that it's coming in and it's lighting this area of the baby, and this is the brightest part of the photograph. So you want to turn that baby either more towards the light source, or bring that light, if it's artificial, around just a little bit more, so that you're lighting this part and just feathering it off just a little bit. So yeah, it's just the direction of that light source. I would sort of bring that baby around a little bit more towards it. I always aim for around a 45-degree angle. But yeah, in terms of color palette, styling and posing, absolutely beautiful. Also, just be aware of little highlights like this. You can soften those, and I know that a lot of babies can get these little hot spots on their nose and around those areas of the face. A little trick I'll just show you very quickly is using the patch tool and sampling an area that's of similar sort of tone and texture. And then when you go up to your edit menu up here, you can come down to fade patch selection. You can bring the opacity of that down, because you do want to highlight there, you don't want to remove it entirely. And yeah, done. That was a little quick trip, but yeah, absolutely beautiful. Good job. All right. Oh, those cheeks. This is one squishy baby. Really enjoying the posing. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to bring up my crop tool here at the moment because you can see that the baby is completely in the center of this frame. So what's distracting is the amount of foreground that we have. If you'd brought the baby sort of down into those bottom 2/3 and had that negative space up above and behind where negative space is supposed to be, you know, in terms of placement and composition, you bring that baby down a little bit more, it brings that baby closer to the viewer in terms of attention, and you're removing anything that's in front of it. So yeah, I would just change that crop ever so slightly using the rule of thirds and the placement of the baby in those intersecting lines. And somewhere in the middle of the bottom 2/3 is what I tend to aim for. But it's just a matter of when you're taking your photo, just sort of tilting up slightly to position the baby in those bottom 2/3. Skin tones look absolutely beautiful. The editing is lovely. You've still got, if we zoom in, you've still got texture in the blanket, but when you are using cream and, you know, sort of lighter colors like this, you do want to be careful that when you're painting over them or you're blurring the edges, that you're not removing all the detail, because what can happen, and this isn't a very high res file, but you might not be able to see it, but what happens is when you start to remove texture and detail and there's a slight shift in tonality there, you're going to create some banding because of the lack of information. So just be careful of that when you are painting and blurring the edges, because you can start to see a little bit of banding going on just around the top up here and around here with some painting, and down here, which I can see is either from a painting or a blurring. And just be careful not to over sharpen when you are using sort of softer wools like this with sort of fibers and things like that. You can see just the over sharpening. It can make it look a little sort of wiry. So when I am sharpening my images, I only tend to sharpen the areas that require it, which is the face and the details. So yeah, sort of mask off that layer if you can. And that's pretty much it. That baby is just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, let's go. Next. All right. Okay, the light coming across the baby's face here is really quite lovely. It's very moody. But when you are, you know, shooting a little darker like this, just be careful that when you're using a lighter tone, it doesn't make it look muddy or grey and flat. So we've got the beautiful light coming in here on the baby's face, but then we've sort of got some different shifts in tonality on the wrap itself. Sort of for around here, we've got some grey sort of muddy tones, and then we've got some creams and whites coming up in here. So just be careful if you're not going to sort of, I suppose, create any difference there. And let's get rid of those red lines. What I'd probably recommend here is not tying the wrap there in a knot and then having it lead directly out of the frame, because when you've got, you know, a dark area and then a light area, they become quite contrasting, and when it hits the edge of the frame, it draws your eye directly out of the image. So you want to keep everything within the center here. So you could potentially even, you know, clone this whole entire area out and just make it more about the baby, or position that a little more in terms of the intent, I suppose. I've seen some images where, you know, the wrap is used so it looks like the baby's hanging, but in terms of the camera angle here and the way that that's done, it doesn't have the tension that would give you the idea that it is some form of hanging fabric, and the sort of the camera angle, I suppose, from here is not what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember. I haven't had enough coffee. But yeah, it doesn't flow. It doesn't give you the impression that the baby is hanging from anything in particular. So yeah, I would definitely just remove this and try converting this to a black and white. Because it's moody, I think you'd get a really nice result here. I think it'd be lovely.
I think I worked out the word. I think it was illusion.
Illusion. There you go. Obviously. not a word that I could remember. Okay, so our next image, these beautiful brown tones. I'm really enjoying the way that this has been styled because we've got, you know, a similar tonal palette going throughout the entire image. So we've got the browns obviously in the wrap, and then the blanket, and then the flooring. The one thing that is quite distracting here is this hard black line coming down around the image here. That's leading you directly out of the frame, so you can't see the rest of it. So I would either soften that down or crop in a little tighter towards the face to eliminate some of it. If you have a look here at our rule of thirds, the baby is not in the center and it's sort of somewhere up the top there. What I would do is bring that crop in a little more and probably center the baby's face just a tad more if you could. And I would try and do this in camera. So when you are photographing a setup like this, you get your full pullback, you come in, and then you get your full close-up. So you're filling the frame with the baby's face, and then look for a few other different angles in terms of the direction of that light, you know, using it to backlight the subject and things like that. But you really do either want to try and have the baby's face placed somewhere in the center of this image or slightly off to the side. But having all of that space around it without a lot of detail down here, it's not adding to the image. It can be quite distracting. But I do love the way that you've styled this and so forth. The direction of that light and the intensity isn't bad, but you have created some quite sort of dark shadows over here. So what I would suggest is bringing in a reflector onto this side of the image. We'll bring back our brush. So if the light's coming in from here, I would then have a reflector just off to the side here, just filling some of those shadows to add some detail, because as it starts to get quite dark down there, what happens is you're going to lose a lot of information, and when you print that file, there won't be any detail and it'll just be really quite black and blocky in there. So adding a reflector over here to the side. Now, depending on how much you want to fill those shadows will depend on how close you want to bring that reflector. So you can have it just slightly in and filling them, or you know, sort of bring it right in to fill those shadows. But it's all about trial and error, and I suggest you kind of have a bit of a play with it. And a reflector can be a piece of polystyrene, a piece of white cardboard, something like that. It doesn't have to be a big professional reflector. It can be anything, because all surfaces are reflective. So yeah, and just be careful of a few little sort of color casts as well. If we come in here, you can see where the light is hitting the hand here, and it's bouncing up into the cheek area, and that's why there's this highlight. So when I say that all surfaces are reflective, that's exactly what I mean by that. And then just in some of those areas there, you can see like a little bit of a color shift in terms of those red tones. All right. Oh, the wrapping on this is absolutely beautiful. Great job. I think the placement of the baby within the composition is, where are we going here? This one? No. There we go. The placement is beautiful. It's, you know, sort of centered in the bottom of those 2/3. You've got all that beautiful negative space. There's an equal amount of distance from both sides. So I think the placement and the composition is absolutely beautiful. This, and like I said, the wrapping. And you've got this beautifully styled sort of palette as well, with the background, the headband, and the wrap. So that all goes really well together. The only thing that I can really comment here is the some of these lines down the bottom here in terms of the wrinkles in the blanket. Now that's just light and shadow, so you can actually add, you know, a lighten layer, an adjustment layer, or a darken adjustment layer, and just paint it onto those areas at a very low opacity, just to bring those shadows up, and you'll find that that really does eliminate those areas quite quickly and easily without having to clone them out, or using the patch tool, or brushing over them, losing information. So that's the easiest way to do that. The little white flowers over here are very, very overexposed, so they're quite bright in there. So just be careful that the light isn't directed at the brightest part of the image. So you can see that where that light is coming in, it is coming in at the top of the baby's head here. So just bringing it around a little bit more in terms of that direction towards the face, or positioning the brighter elements of an image off to the other side, so that way they're not as distracting. But yeah, Color tone's lovely. There's a little bit of over sharpening going on, so just be careful of that, as it can sort of, you know, create some sort of dark sort of lines around the features there. But yeah, beautiful job. Look at that baby's face. That is very, very cute. All right, so what we can see here is the way that the light is coming in, it's very much up and above the baby coming down. So it is lighting this entire area, and the face is the darkest part of this image. So what you want to do is have the light over here. You want to bring that baby's face just up a little bit more towards that light, and it's going to be the closest thing to the light source, which is what we want. The color tone throughout this is really quite lovely, and the posing of the baby is almost there. So what I can see is that there's an arm here coming through. I can see the top of the elbow right there. So when you are posing the baby on their side, you imagine laying like that yourself and how comfortable that would be. So when you've got the arm up like this, you kind of want to have the body turned around and into that. But when they're on their side like this, you're putting an awful lot of strain down here. It's actually going to be quite hard to bring that baby's face up in terms of how they're positioned. So what you want to do with side pose is make sure either both arms are down in beside the body, or you've got one kind of out to the back here and the other hand up here. But having that arm up like that's going to make it really hard for you to position that baby's up a little bit higher towards that light source. So when you come to attempting this pose again in the future with another baby, just remember to bring that arm down. I cover all of this in my tutorials for the side pose, and also in transitional posing and a few other tutorials that I have as well. And I talk also about that direction of light. But if we have a look at the placement of the baby, again, it is in the bottom 2/3, which is exactly where you want it. You know, the crop is a little tight in terms of where the baby's head is, so it's a little constraining. So giving the baby a little bit more space around the edges, and, you know, going for a more sort of, where am I? More full frame crop like that is what you'd probably want, just to eliminate some of the space above and below that baby, so that is all about the baby. But yeah, good job. I love the styling and the color there, and it's a great attempt at that pose. Okay, how many people we got joining us?
We have 132 live right now.
Holy dooly. Hi everyone. I'm in my zone right now. I'm not really paying attention to any of the comments down there, and I can see you guys are all interacting. Good job.
Can I get you a coffee, or you're right with your water?
Oh, I'd love a coffee.
You'd love a coffee?
Please.
I'll get you a coffee.
Thank you. Oh, sorry everyone. If it was 8 p.m. at night, I'd have a glass of wine in front of me, but it is 8:36. Okay, next image. Really enjoying the color tones here throughout this cream sort of area of the image. And you know what, I don't mind that it's a little contrasty in terms of the heavy dark background and the lighter sort of styling here, because I suppose from what I'm looking at, it's almost like a frame around the baby. So if we zoom out, you can have a look, and it looks like it's framing the baby. So your eye is going straight in towards the baby, which is exactly what you want to do. A couple of things to be careful of, again, is the direction of that light. We've got quite a bright area here. It is the brightest part of the photo. So we can see that that light is coming in, you know, from that direction. What I would do is just bring that light, so you can see it's sort of coming in from over here. You want to bring it in so that the light is coming from more of a position sort of slightly in front of the baby, so you can light the rest of the face there, because from this position, where the light is placed, it's coming in and it's lighting that part of the baby, not that part of the baby. So just bringing that light around, or turning that prop a little bit more towards that light source if you can. Then you're going to really make sure that that baby's face is the first thing that people see when they look at images like this, because like I said before, when you are using lighter tones like this, and they do become so bright, they become distracting. So it's all about the direction and the intensity of that light to where you place it, because you really do want to make this the main focal point. Because at the moment, and like I said before, if we zoom out, You know, the brightest part is the baby's back and the head. Another way to have a look at the brightest part is to flip an image upside down so you can see exactly where your eye is drawn. But yeah, this is definitely the brightest part, but that face is beautiful. The tonality of the skin is absolutely beautiful on the baby's face. There's just a few little blue tones down here in the hand, so warming those up so it's nice and even. And yeah, that's about it. All right. We've had a few pink images today. Okay, the baby looks really comfortable. When you have a look at the composition, you know, it's placed quite well within the center of the frame there, so I'm loving that. And then you've got the blanket coming up, so it's filling the bottom third of that image. So in terms of composition and crop, I think you've done a really great job. Hang on, I'll just have a quick drink of water. Now, if you have a look at the direction of the light here, easiest way to see it is by looking at the shadows. So the shadows are up here as opposed to down here. So that means that the light is coming in on this sort of angle. And what it does is it highlights underneath the nostrils, and then it can create some really unwanted shadows here around the face. So if this was natural light, just turn that posing bag on more of an angle towards the light source, so the top of the baby's head is closest to the light. That's going to allow you to have that light coming down from this direction. But if it's artificial light, just moving that light source so that you've got some more flattering line, sort of more flattering shadows coming down across the baby's face and highlighting those features instead of creating some unwanted shadows. And just be careful not to lose detail in some of those areas of the skin where it is quite bright. It's lacking a little bit of tonality there, and it is a little cool in terms of skin tone, so just warming it up. You can see some cooler blue tones over here on the hands, but that's pretty much it. That's all I have. Oh, thank you very much.
Little Miss Messy.
I've got a Mr. Messy cup. Thank you so much. All right, good job. Okay, baby looks really, really comfortable in this, and it's a very natural pose, which, you know, I'm a big fan of. The first thing I want to talk about is the composition and the placement of the baby within the frame. So if we have a look here, the baby's face and head is slightly in the center of that frame, but what we've got over here is a really large, bright area that is very, very contrasting. So what you want to do is make sure that the baby is the main focus of this and is centered and eliminate a lot of that distraction. So I would possibly bring that crop in, and you can crop through the elbow. I don't recommend cropping hands off or legs off or anything like that. You always want to have those hands in. But when you do crop through an arm, make sure that you don't crop up through, say for example, that line there, because that's a heavy line, and you're going to be drawing the attention of the viewer out of the frame. So yeah, I'd probably crop it in about there so the baby's face is centered and you're using those you know, there's intersecting lines to create you know, a beautiful composition. So let's turn that off and have a little look. So with the light on the baby's face is quite lovely. You've got some really quite dark shadows over here. So I can see that the light is coming in and hitting this area more so than it is hitting the baby. But what I would do is just bring in a reflector over here, and that way it would fill some of those shadows. You don't want to fill them so they're not there. You just want to soften them so that there's detail and they don't become so heavy, especially when you're using lighter tones like this to style with. If you were using darker sort of browns and blacks and things like that, and you want to create that depth and that mood, then you might not want a reflector. It is entirely up to you, but using the histogram on the back of your camera to check, you know, if you've kept detail in your highlights and kept detail in some shadows is really important as well. But yeah, I would just bring a reflector in off to the side here to just fill some of those shadows and just adjust that crop. And when you are styling with a really sort of heavy primary color here in terms of the hat and the blanket, you might want to have a look at the background color in terms of a similar tone. So you could use like a lighter yellow if you want to keep it nice and bright, or a darker sort of yellow tone there, but keeping them in that similar color and tonal range, as opposed to having them really quite contrasty like this, because it can be quite jarring in an image. But yeah, beautiful baby, and good job otherwise. All right. Okay, so I'm looking at the wrapping first and the posing, and I can see that a lot of attention to detail has been, you know, played here, and the baby, the positioning of the hand and everything. And his little face is just adorable. But one thing that would have worked really well, and I know that not all babies cooperate the way that we want them to, but is just, you can see the hand is up here on the cheek, is just bringing that chin up a little more and resting it in the palm of that. And by doing that, you would have brought that little face up towards that light where it is coming in from that plate, that sort of position and angle. So yeah, that would have brought that up. When I am working with a baby that might not be as sort of settled or a little bit more sensitive to touch, I get my safe shot. So this would have been my safe shot, and then I come back and I'll change the way that the baby's face is positioned, all the hands, to get that shot. So sometimes they won't let you, but it's always good to attempt it, because the more you fuss and the more you try to get that perfect shot with a baby that's not cooperating the way you want them to, the more you can unsettle them and overstimulate them. So and when you take the time to sort of step back and get that safe shot, when you leave them alone, they actually settle into a bit of a sleep, and then you can come back and change some of the positioning of the baby in terms of hand placement and things like that. So the blue in the background here, we'll get rid of those red lines. It is quite contrasty in terms of the light and shadow. So you can see that the baby's in sort of a bit of a well area, and that's where the light is not obviously hitting that particular part of the blanket, and you're creating a lot of sort of dark shadows around here. Where the light's coming in, where the fabric is raised more from supports or the posing bag, that's what's going to create those brighter areas in the image. So it's like sort of, peaks and valleys where the light hits it. Think of it in that sort of sense. So what you want to do is make sure that if you do have a very soft posing bag, that you're using quite a few thick layers on top of the posing bag to create a firm layer, so that when you are putting supports around the baby or under the baby, that thick layer is going to be a lot smoother in terms of those peaks and troughs where the light hits it. So it could create that, it could soften, I suppose, the contrast between the highlights and shadows there that is a little distracting. You can also see that it's slightly oversaturated in some areas, so you might just want to check that and your screen calibration as well. But yeah, the direction of that light is lovely. It is a little bright in some areas. If we have a look at the hand here, the fingers, so that's quite a bright highlight. You can tone those down, or just be a little bit more sort of careful with the intensity of that light, and try feathering it a little bit. If it's natural light, you could try filtering it with sheer curtains, things like that, or scrims. If it is a softbox, just try turning it and looking at the intensity of that light in terms of feathering it across the baby, so it's a little softer and not so contrasty. That'll also help with your background as well. But yeah, over here with these shadows, you could try bringing in a reflector. Also, when you are using really sort of solid primary colors like this, you do need to be careful, like I mentioned earlier, that every single surface is reflective, so color is going to bounce in terms of where the light hits it. So obviously the light is coming in here and it's hitting the background, and it's throwing some color shifts in here. So if we zoom in, you can see there's some blue tones around the baby's face here, and that's purely because of the particular colors that you're using. It is very, very difficult to work with really sort of bright primary colors in terms of not getting any color shifts in certain areas. So you just want to make sure of that, and have a little bit more control with the direction and intensity of that light, which can help with that as well. All right, let's move on to our next image. All right, oh, we have maternity. First thing, I thought this was a bride, but it's a maternity. Wow, look at that. Goodness. That is a lot of water hitting her. Okay. What I'm seeing is a lot of water. And why I thought that it was my brain instantly went to wedding, it was because of the white dress. So just be careful with things like this that aren't taking away from the image. You want to make sure that you're adding to it in terms of that composition and that capture, because I think that what's happening here with the wave, even though it is a great capture of a wave, I think that it's actually overpowering the subject, and you're losing, you know, the maternity sort of aspect of this particular photo, because this looks like a beautiful location and you should continue to revisit this and use it as well. So yeah, just if you've got another frame with less water, even though I do like a little bit of movement and a little bit of splash, the water is really quite sharp around here. It's and she looks to be a little soft, so your camera's pulled focus on that wave and not on her. And when you're looking at shooting at sunsets and things like that outdoor, try a neutral density filter as well, because where the sun's sort of setting there, it is really quite bright. Another way to do that is by using, you know, off-camera flash, things like that, that can help light the subject, so you can pull down your exposure to get that beautiful sunset look. That can be quite tricky if you've never used that before, but I really encourage you to continue to attempt it, because you can capture some beautiful outdoor sunset shots. I'm not sure if it's a sunrise actually, I can't quite tell. But also where that light is placed, it's coming in behind her. So this part of her is obviously the brightest part, and her face is slightly darker, and the belly is hidden in behind all of that water. So you're losing that. I don't know if you can hear it, but my dog is snoring. He's right next to me on the couch and he is snoring. I'm sorry if you can hear that. So yeah, but also when you are shooting outdoor and you've got a very strong horizon line in the background, just make sure it's straight. It's just slightly off balance there, sort of hitting, you know, on a downward sort of slope off to the left hand side there. But you know, I really encourage you to continue to go back to this location and attempt this, because you're on the right track. Just be careful that that water isn't overpowering the image and you're losing the main focus, which is a maternity portrait. All right. Okay, so I'm really enjoying the placement of the baby here in the frame. Let's change our crop. I hate how it does that. So the baby is nice and centered, and then you've got obviously the handles, they're nice and balanced there off to the side. You've got equal distance over here and here. When I look at the posing of the baby, whilst the face looks, you know, nice and comfortable and relaxed, the baby looks a little uncomfortable in terms of the leg placement. So when you are wrapping them, wrap them in your lap, and you're going to be able to position them within inside that wrap a lot better, so they don't look so uncomfortable. You really want to try and tuck the heel here down in behind this leg, so that it's not sitting up on top and making it look uncomfortable. Wrapping is something that takes a lot of practice, so I suggest practicing on a fake baby, on a doll, gosh, even on a teddy bear would be, you know, helpful in this case. But yeah, I find that the wrap is just a little untidy, a little messy in some areas, but I do understand that it can take a long time to sort of perfect and get right. With a prop like this, what I try to do is actually leave a bit more of a well down here for the bottom, so that way the baby's bottom can go a little deeper into the well as well, and the head's a little higher. That's going to help you position and create more support, because as the baby goes down inside a prop like this, you're creating more support around the actual top half of the baby as well. So yeah, and I know that some babies don't like having their arms out and prefer for them to be wrapped, but we can't see the hands, we can't see anything like that. So when you are wrapping a baby in this sort of position, you want to make those legs a little bit more tucked in, so that it doesn't look like it doesn't have any arms. I don't like saying that, but you know, just sort of consider that as well. But it does get easier the more you do it and the more you practice. Great control of light, is a little a little sort of flat over here, so I would probably not bring up those shadows too much on this side. You can see that the shadows are over here, but a little bit more shadow around the side of the face here and the nose would just give you a little bit more dimension and depth to the baby's features. When you look at the skin tones, just try evening those out, because you can see that the baby's foot is quite sort of pink and blue there, and the baby's face has got more yellow tones. So just even those out, warming those sort of feet up a little more to match the face. All right, let's move on to our next one. How are we going? I don't even know how many I've got left or how many I've done. I've lost track.
It's a mystery.
It is, it is. This is such a beautiful moment between a mother and her kids. I really do enjoy this. One thing that's really popping out to me is the styling of it. It's sometimes less is more, and I feel that, you know, the headband is really quite distracting in terms of, if you look just purely at this, you know, that now becomes the brightest part of that connection. So it pulls your eye away from this beautiful intimate moment. So little girls love wearing headbands and dressing up, not a problem with that. But sometimes when you're going for that really beautiful intimate moment, strip everything back and just make it about them and that connection. The darker jacket here and the white sort of sleeve coming around, when you're losing detail in these darker areas here and you've got a dark background, this just looks like a floating arm. So you want to make sure that in terms of styling, everything's going together and you're not going to lose detail in those darker sort of areas. Because over here, I know there's an arm there, but it is starting to sort of disappear, and then you've got like these magical hands that are just sort of sitting there in terms of placement. So you want to make sure that you've got some form of separation between the background and the foreground, and then not parts of their body aren't disappearing into it, is what I'm trying to say there. So positioning of the baby in the mum's arms, the baby looks comfortable, but the largest part of the baby is this part here. So what you want to do when you are positioning them up nice and high in the mum's arms is create that curl. So it's just like positioning the baby on the back on the posing bag, bringing that bottom up, and so that you can see mum's hands are down here at the moment. You want to bring them up so they're closer together to curl that baby up into position. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this beautiful moment. I think your black and white conversion is lovely. It's got great contrast. You just need to be careful in terms of the way that you light this. I would have them sort of turned a little bit more of an angle towards that light source, and probably just reduce the intensity of it because it is quite bright. The placement of them though within the frame is absolutely lovely. Good job. Okay. Oh, I have this same floor. I do. All right. So looking at the composition, sorry, just sipping my coffee. The placement of the baby is, you know, is in the center of the frame. It's absolutely lovely. What I'm struggling with are these horizontal, diagonal lines coming down. There's not one over here, but then there are two over there, so they're not balanced in terms of that distance between them. So I would probably soften them right down or eliminate them completely. And the same trick I showed you previously with the patch tool, when you are working with lines like this, is that you can come in, use the patch tool, highlight that, drag it over, and then come up to your edit, fade, patch selection, and then you can sort of have a look at bringing some of that detail back so that it's there but it's not as distracting. So I would either soften it or remove it completely. And then with the posing of the baby, I am enjoying the sort of backlit lighting technique here. But what we're finding is that we are losing a lot of light here in the baby's face, and it has been brought up in post-production. I can see that because when you've got a lot of shadow down here, if you're using a reflector to fill the shadow on the face, when you've got you know, really dark shadows down here, it becomes quite sort of heavy weighted, and it's not consistent in terms of that fill that you would need to light the baby's face. So what I would try and attempt here is just to bring that baby's face up a little higher towards the ceiling, so that the light does sort of fall across the other side of the face somewhat, because you do want to have a little bit of light on there, but do it with the actual light source itself, not in post-production. The hands over here are just a little bit bright as well, and I know obviously babies' hands, they have a mind of their own, but just trying to soften those fingers so that they're not sort of all tangled up around the face there, so that they become distracting and pull you away from the baby's face, because being sort of you know, untidy and bright, they are sort of quite sort of distracting there in terms of that. The styling of this is absolutely beautiful though. I'm really loving the hat, the wrap, and that fur there as well. It's beautiful in that sense. So you're almost there, so close, and yeah, I would keep attempting this, because one of my favorite things that I do is backlight images. Another thing that I would recommend is just moving your body slightly to the right, sort of, so as you're coming in here and you're shooting directly this way, I would possibly try coming in from this position, lifting that baby's face a little more, and you might end up with a completely different camera angle as well. All right, this is beautiful. Actually, the square crop in this is beautiful. I really enjoy that. If we have a look at our composition first, where we got a little square up here. She's not in the center of the frame. She's just off to the side, you know, and in the middle of these 2/3, which is exactly where I would have positioned her in terms of that composition. And she's looking off. This is a great example of using that negative space to your advantage, because she's looking off into that space. If that negative space had been, you know, over here behind her, it wouldn't make sense. It would be quite distracting. So in terms of using that negative space, it's been really, really well done. What I'm really enjoying here as well is the posing. I think she looks nice and relaxed. Her hand looks soft. Just be careful though, with these sort of placements of hands, that you know, it's not like a wandering hand, I suppose, and you're not seeing the rest of the arm. So when you are posing a maternity model like this, try changing the arms to have a look at the difference, because what I would do is bring this front arm, I'll bring my brush back, bring this front arm down, sort of in that beautiful flow, and then bring this arm here up to hold that fabric, and then you're going to see both arms. What I'd also be careful here of is these highlights on the breast and on the belly. They are really quite bright, and on the forehead as well. So the intensity of that light is quite bright, because what's happening is when you're exposing for those highlights here, you're actually then going to be underexposing those shadows. So I would suggest bringing down the intensity of the light that is coming in from over here, and then filling some of the shadows over here, so that there's still, you know, beautiful areas of highlight and shadow, but what's happening is all of this area here is really quite dark and underexposed, so you want to keep detail in there. Her skin is beautiful. It's really natural. It's not over softened. I love it when you can, you know, keep all of that beautiful texture in the skin, all of that detail. But yeah, that bright highlight just there on the forehead, when you zoom out, is quite distracting in terms of her face, because she has a gorgeous face. But yeah, so just be careful of those shadows there. But the moodiness and the styling of it is absolutely beautiful. Oh goodness. All right, I do love a good close-up, and this is sort of like one of those moments where they're smiling and you just got to capture it, because you know the parents are going to absolutely love it. One thing to be careful of when you are coming in and getting those close-up shots is losing limbs. So we can see that there's one hand here and a foot, but we've lost the other hand. So when you come in for the close-up, just try bringing that hand over on top of the chest or somewhere in, maybe on top of the feet. But when it goes out of the frame like that and it's quite sort of, you know, a strong leading line, it does draw your eye away from the baby's face. And we've got one eye open and one eye closed, which is really quite cute, and I know that the parents are going to love it. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to suggest there, but I mean, this is someone's baby. This is an expression that they've pulled, and you know, they're staring at their babies non-stop for the first couple of weeks and getting to know all of their different little quirks and things like that. So I know that they're absolutely going to love that. The highlights on this part of the face are really quite bright. So what I can see is that there is a lot of light coming up from this direction, and it's creating some strong highlights around the nose, but it is really, really intense and bright, so it's made the face look quite flat. So what you want to do is bring the light down from the top, soften it a little so you create some beautiful shadows. There are shadows here, but you want to mold the features, like I keep saying in previous images, and not have the intensity of that light so bright that everything just looks quite flat. When you do convert it to a black and white, it can look sort of a little grey and muddy. So when you're looking to convert an image to black and white, you do want whites, you do want blacks, and then you want greys in between. So you want that beautiful contrast, and that's all about the way that you light that image when you're capturing it. So try turning either the posing bag a little more towards that light, away from that light source, so the top of the head is closest. Or if it's artificial light, just have a look at the placement of that light in terms of how close it is to the subject, and the intensity and brightness of it as well, and positioning that softbox more as well in terms of feathering the light so it's softer. We talk about that in Ryan's lighting class, and I also talk about that in getting it right in camera, because it can make or break an image. I know when I'm judging competitions, and I know we're not talking competitions here, but you know, you can have a beautifully styled photograph, beautifully set up, but if the lighting is all wrong, you know, it can be sort of quite sort of sad for the maker of that image in terms of their score, because they could have potentially had a much better score, much higher score. So yeah, the lighting is huge, and just be careful when you're using a darker wrap like that. Again, it's going outside of the frame, so I would have sort of changed my camera angle slightly, come up a little higher, moved that top arm there, and then kept the edge of the wrap just inside the frame, because as it leads out here and leads out here, and then you've got this bright area in here, it's become quite distracting. So just remember to move your body, and remember to move that camera and look for all of those different camera angles. When you are positioning yourself above the baby, have a look at the nose first, so we can see that the camera angle, we're sort of coming in a direct line to the bottom of the nose. When you're positioning yourself, think of a straight line going from the end of the lens to the top of the baby's nose. That's a really great trick. And then what you're going to do is eliminate these nostrils so you're not seeing them. But yeah, I do know when a baby smiles, you just want to quickly grab it. So and then you forget to get all those different angles, because you get caught up in the moment of getting that smiling baby. All right. Oh. All right, we haven't seen many vertical images yet. Let's have a little look here. So it's not really in between a 5:7 crop or whatever it was, or an 8:10. It's slightly off. So just make sure that when you are cropping your images, that you know if you're printing for your clients, which you should be, that you're going for those standard sizes, and what your labs can do, and in terms of mats and frames and all of that kind of stuff. But what I do really enjoy about the composition is the placement of the dad's hand and the baby in the bottom 2/3, and then you've got all this lovely negative space at the top of the frame. So I am enjoying that vertical crop, and in terms of the placement of the subject in the bottom half there, I think that that's really lovely. The light coming in is, the intensity of it is lovely. So you can see the beautiful skin tones. The thing is that it's coming in and it's lighting again the bottom of that baby's nose, and it's creating some bright highlights here and then some darker shadows in here. So what I do in this case is turn the baby's face away from the light source. I know it sounds a little wrong in terms of lighting your subject, but if I've got the light coming in, I don't know if you can actually see my hand here, but if you've got the light coming in from this side and your chin's up towards the light, then you are going to light that. So what I do is I turn the baby's face away from the light and then around to the light, so that way the light's coming down across the forehead and the nose. So if this is artificial light, I would have possibly placed it on this side coming in. That then would have eliminated the lack of detail over here in the dark hair that's blending into the background, and this part of the image over here where the light is coming in wouldn't have been so bright, and what's happening with it being so bright is that it's leading your eye out of the frame. So if the light source had been on this side coming in from a bit of an angle, you know, it would have lit this part of the frame first. The fall off of light would have come down to Dad's hand, and then all of this would have been in the shadows, and then you'd have a more flattering, it'd be more flattering in terms of the direction of those shadows across the baby's face as well. You know, I don't mind the pose. The hands could be sort of tidied up just a little bit, but I also understand that it can be hard to get those hands absolutely perfect. A trick when you are positioning the hands, babies love to have their little thumbs up inside the palm of their hand. So to get them, and when they're in there, it's very hard to get those hands flat. So you've got to bring those thumbs out to make the hands sit flat. That's what you want to try and do there. But in terms of the skin tone, it's absolutely lovely. Direction of light would have drastically changed this image, and really, it really would have benefited from it. So just be careful that you're not losing detail there in the hair where it is sort of lacking in separation from the background. All right. Oh, we've got one more. Oh my goodness. Oh, and Garrett doesn't make that noise often. That face, the hair. Are you for real? That baby is absolutely gorgeous. Oh my goodness. All right, let's get back to what I'm meant to be doing. Sorry, wrong one. This way. Okay, so again, slightly off in terms of that crop. So the baby's face is in the center of the frame here, but I would have actually probably had it and rotate a little more, reduce the amount of space that you've got over here, because it is distracting. This baby, the hair, everything, this baby should be, you know, front and center. It doesn't need all of that space around it. It's quite distracting. So yeah, I would bring that crop in a little tighter and just rotate it to even the baby out just a bit. If it was one of my sort of camera angles, I'd probably be looking for something, you know, around here, because what happens is it looks like the baby's going to fall off the side of the page when they are on such an angle. So when you are rotating your camera from left to right, just be careful that, you know, that baby is and does look, you know, that it's nice and stable and comfortable. Because one thing that really kind of hit home to me quite a few years ago, and some of you have probably heard this story before, but my older brother, he's 7 years older than me. He's walked into my studio, and there's a picture of a baby on the posing bag like this. It didn't have any wraps, there was no clothes, it was naked, it was in the taco pose. And he looked at it, and it was a high key black and white, and he looked at it and he said, "That baby looks cold." And I looked at it and went, well, it wasn't. There was a heater on, like the baby was warm, it was comfortable. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Every day that I walk past that picture, I was like this disgruntled, angry person going, what does he know? And then it got to me that, you know what, we create these beautiful photographs that are going to hang in client homes, and everyone that sees those photographs isn't going to know how the image was made or that the room was warm. What it does is it creates a feeling. Every time somebody looks at an image, it gives them either, well, you could go through a range of emotions. You know, it can create sadness, it can create joy. Like obviously looking at this image for the first time, it's created joy because look at that baby. You know, these different emotions of what we've got to be careful of, because for me, I feel like the baby's going to fall off the edge of the page. So when we create photos, we have to create with intention that when anyone is looking at them, that they're going to create a feeling. So always keep that in the back of your mind, not just for this image, for all images that you create, which is really, really important. So that was a big lesson for me many years ago, and it took me a while to realize the importance of what it was that he said, and how much it's actually impacted the way that I do things and the images that I create now. I very rarely have naked babies because I want people to feel comfortable. I want them to look at photos. So there's I'll see if I can find it. I've got a little list of what people look for in a photograph, and I'll put it into the group later today. Okay, I'll share that with you. Okay. Color tone styling, absolutely beautiful, and I can see that, you know, a little stiff in terms of the the tension there in the fingers. It's really holding on for dear life to its little arm there. So this again is where you get that safe shot. Let it relax a little bit, a little more gentle sort of, you know, rocking from side to side to get those elbows separated. With this particular pose, you can see, you know, the hand is sort of quite high here. And the arms, so it's very hard to get those arms in under your chin, and you can all try it at home. No one can see you, but when you've got your arms positioned like that, if you try and bring your chin forward, it's really uncomfortable. So when you separate the elbows, bring those hands together, you can bend the elbows, bringing those hands up underneath the chin. That's covered in all of my tutorials for posing, because understanding, you know, the comfort of a baby and how we position them is really, really important. But I do get that some babies just don't relax, but the face looks beautiful and relaxed. It's just the tension in those hands and the arms. Treatment of the blanket is beautiful. The editing is lovely. The hands are a little cooler, so just be careful in terms of the different sort of tones there and evening those out. But yeah, I've done a lot of talking. I've been going for an hour. I hope you guys have enjoyed this experience. I think it is extremely beneficial to have your photos critiqued, and even though it's one photograph for each person, and I am only doing 20. We opened the submission the other night, so that, because we understand that not everyone all over the world, and we'll continue to change the times that we do open that up, so that it allows everyone the opportunity to submit those photos wherever they live. But yeah, even if you didn't have a photograph submitted, there's some really great tips and tricks there. Critiquing is one of the most educational things you can do. And it's the same with going and watching, you know, print competitions and judging. When you watch the judging, it is so, the information and the knowledge that's being shared is so invaluable as a photographer. And when we do the judging of the Rise Awards again later this year, that's going to be online for the top 20 of each category. And you know, even if you don't enter, watch that, because you learn so much. So yeah, it is Friday here. We're getting, I can see a couple of comments coming through. That's fantastic.
That's Sherry at the bottom there.
Oh, hi Sherry.
Mike Burton above that.
Hi Mike.
Mike's been a bit of a cheerleader in here. He's got so much out of it. He's really loved it.
Oh,
going by his comments,
fantastic.
so
thanks Mike.
really cool.
Yeah, well, I'm reading the one about the constructive criticism. So yeah, it is hard to critique an image without sometimes potentially upsetting the author or the maker of the image. So even though sometimes we don't like what we hear, always take it on board, and it may just take you a few days to process that information. But you know, come back, have a look at it, and like I said before we started, you know, it's so beneficial to be able to see your images through someone else's eyes. You know, I enter competitions myself for that particular reason, because I want to know what people see. I want to know what I miss. Sometimes, you know, we get lazy. Doesn't matter how long you've been a photographer for, there's always something to learn, and that's what we have to remember. No one knows everything, and it truly is the only way we can continue to evolve as photographers, to try new things, step outside our comfort zone, push ourselves to new limits. And every year I try to do that, and I create personal work for myself that I enter to get that feedback from, because if I didn't do it, I would become very stale, I suppose. Yeah. And a couple of years ago I lost my mojo. I didn't know what to create. I wasn't feeling particularly inspired, and this year I got it back, and actually last year I got it back about halfway through the year, and I've been making heaps of stuff and doing stuff that might not go over well, but let's just see what happens at WPPI when they're judged, and that'll be really, really interesting to hear the feedback, to know that, you know, I'm on the right track, or yeah, I'm creating something that's new and unique and is totally me. And that's what we've also got to remember, is that the photos that you create for your clients, they're for them and they're for you. They're for no one else. So when you are putting your photos up into different groups, and unfortunately what I see a lot of, and I'm a member of a lot of different groups on Facebook, is I'll see the same photographer put the same photos in probably 4 or 5 different groups. And it is a sense of, you know, you need to be continually reassured that you're doing the right thing, but you know what, like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to put your photos on the internet for instant gratification. You need to be focused on your clients and what you're creating for them, and creating it for yourself using your own vision, your own style, your own uniqueness. Be you, and stop worrying about what all the other photographers in the universe think of your work, because that when you pay too much energy and attention towards that, you're actually not paying enough energy and attention towards your own business. So focus on you and what you're creating. And we're going to continue to do more of these critiques every month. In the banner of the group, you'll see dates up until
15th of March is the next one.
15th of March,
yes.
Fantastic. So that is just before my live on the 20th of March.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Busy
Actually,
week.
It is going to be a busy week. Do we still have people on? Yeah?
Lots of people, 92 people on.
Oh, fantastic.
Sandra wants to know where you got your top from.
Oh. I have about 6 of these now, and they're from Faux Tees, PHO, I think there's a dash. TEE. And these are my favorite t-shirts right now to wear, because they're so comfortable, and she's got really great colors. I'm not an overly bright person, but I loved this tealy sort of greeny color. I found her in the UK last year when I went over for the newborn posing show. She's going to be back there again in May in Coventry. So if you're in the UK, come and see her. But she's got a massive range of shirts, and she's got a Facebook page and a website, so go and check her out.
I'll pop a link in the comments afterwards.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna head off. Oh no, I was gonna say, yesterday we may have found our family for the live newborn session. And I say family because there's a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. So it's gonna get crazy in that studio on the 20th of March, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. I'm going to be doing sibling posing, and I'm going to be doing family posing, and we're just going to roll with the punches and see what happens with a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old.
You nervous, Cal?
No. Just a little bit. All right, you guys have a fantastic weekend. Like I said, it's Friday here, and I'm going to go get some work done, but I think I'm going to have an early mark today. I'm going to have a nice weekend. Yeah. I'll see you later.